Canto 7, Chapter 9, text number 16. What's the meter? Vatasva karma beer, Vatashinate nigram mulam, Vito pravarga shadanam, Avashya Vashyakarinam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I think this is the right meter. Trastos myaham kripanavatsala dusahogra sangsara chakra kadanad grasatam pranitaha badha swakarma bir Ushatatamante Tengri Mulam Prito Pavarga Sharanam Yase Kadano. Trashtos Myaham Kripana Vatsalado Satsahogra. Sangsara chakra kadanad grasatam pranitaha badhasva karma vir ushatamate ning ushatengri molam Prito pavarga sharanam Vasyase Vyayase Kadano. Trasyus Maham Kripanavatsalak Dosahogra Sangsara Chakra Kadanadra Satam Pranita Badhasva Karma Birut Tengri Drastyosmyaham Kripanavatsala Dosahogra Sangsara Chakram Kadanad Satam Pranitaha Badhasva Karma Bir Ushatama Tengri Mulam. Ladies, chant, anyone? Your voices are not very loud, so I'm just going to go on to the word for word. Trastaha, frightened. Asmi, am. Aham, I. Kripana Vatsala. Oh, my Lord, who are so kind to the fallen souls who have no spiritual knowledge. Dosaha, intolerable. Ugra, ferocious. Sangsara chakra, of the cycle of birth and death. Kadanat, from such a miserable condition. Grasatam, among other conditioned souls who devour one another. Pranitaha, being thrown. Vadaha, bound. Swakarma bihi, the course by the reactions of my own activities. Ushatama, oh, great, insurmountable. Te, your. Angri Mulam, the soles of your lotus feet. Pritaha, being pleased with me. Appavarga Sharanam, which are the shelter meant for liberation from this horrible condition of material existence. Vayase, you will call me. Kada, when? No, indeed. Translation, oh, most powerful, insurmountable Lord, who are kind to the fallen souls. I have been put into the association of demons as a result of my activities, and therefore I am very much afraid of my condition of life within this material world. When will that moment come when you call me to the shelter of your lotus feet, which are the ultimate goal for liberation from conditional life? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Being in the material world is certainly miserable, but certainly when one is put into the association of asuras or atheistic men, it is intolerably so. One may ask why the living entity is put into the material world. Indeed, sometimes foolish people deride the Lord from having put them here. Actually, everyone is put into conditional life according to his karma. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj, representing all the other conditioned souls, admits that he was put into life among the asuras because of the results of his karma. The Lord is known as Kripana Vatsala because he is extremely kind to the conditioned souls. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, therefore, the Lord appears whenever there are discrepancies in the execution of religious principles. Yada yada hi dharma shaglanir bhavati bharata tadat manam sirjamyaham. The Lord is extremely anxious to deliver the conditioned souls, and therefore he instructs all of us to return home back to Godhead. Sarva dharman pratyaja mam ekam sharanam braja. Thus, Prahlad Maharaj expected that the Lord, by his kindness, would call him again to the shelter of his lotus feet. In other words, everyone should be eager to return home back to Godhead, taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, and thus being fully trained in Krishna consciousness. Question. Is Prahlad Maharaj speaking like this out of humility? Or is Prahlad Maharaj actually convinced that he's taken birth in a demoniac family because of his past karma? Or some other option? Humility. You're saying? It's so what's your answer? Humility. For others, humility or elevation. Anyone have a different? Can you think of other examples where Vaishnavas, Shuddha Bhaktas like Prahlad, speak in such a way that they're speaking as if they're not Shuddha Bhaktas, but they're very fallen and lowly and who? Queen Kunti? Anyone else? Sanatana Goswami. Can you elaborate? What does Sanatana Goswami say? Thank you. Yeah. So can you just describe a little bit Sanatana Goswami's expression of humility, just for our audition? When he comes before Lord Chaitanya with straw in his teeth, what does he say? You can't remember exactly. Remember, he says, people consider me to be a learned person, but the fact is, I don't even know who I am. Please instruct me. And why am I subjected to the threefold miseries? As if he doesn't know. As if he doesn't know. What's an example of Rupa Goswami? There's many. Some of you are familiar with the Nectar of Devotion, that little section, Ashabandha, hope against hope. I have no qualification, I have only disqualification. Nonetheless, I'm shameless. I'm asking for you to give me shelter. So there is such a thing as Vaishnava humility, and there is such a thing as extreme Vaishnava humility, and it's not low self-esteem or self-deprecation or any of those other things. Is there a purpose for Vaishnava humility? One of the purposes of Vaishnava humility is sustaining and supporting and an ongoing way seeking mercy. Only if you're merciful, then there's some hope for me. let's go to, this is chapter 9. In chapter 10, at the end of chapter 9, after many of Prahlad's prayers, Lord Nrsingadev he appreciates Prahlad and his submission. And then he asks Prahlad to take any benediction. So at the beginning of chapter 10, Prahlad says, don't tempt me like this, please. And again says, because I was born in demoniac family, I have demoniac characteristics. And I know, he has knowledge that desiring something material is going to lead to further bondage than I already have. So please don't do this. Again, he's speaking as if he's a conditioned soul, as if he's one of us or someone that's in the material world. And then he moves to saying to Lord Nrsingadev, which is relevant to this morning's verse. He says to Lord Nrsingadev, you sent me here to this material world to teach the ways of pure devotional service. So he's a Vaikunthavasi. Vaikunthavasi don't take birth in this world because of their past karma. But he's saying because of past karma. So it's instructive. Because we take birth due to past karma, not because we're sent from Vaikuntha to teach the way of pure devotional service. So he's instructing the way of pure devotional service through these expressions of humility, or Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and so many, many, many others, exalted personalities, we could say Shuddha Bhaktas, teaching also the way of pure devotional service. And for us, taking birth has everything to do with, according to Bhagavad Gita, our association with the modes of nature and our previous activities. And then there's the whole description of what type of birth. And then supposing there's a high birth, Janma Aishvarya Shruta Shri, one has material assets arising from past pious activities. And that's a problem. It's an asset, but at least potentially it's a problem. It's potentially a problem, strong potential problem because of pride. And pride arises when one thinks, just see my assets. Janma Aishvarya Shruta Shri. And it happens again and again, and it happens again and again, and it happens again and again, and it happens again and again. Persons who have material assets are proud of their assets. Or not just, those four, supposing you do something nice. Supposing Gaur Purnima is coming. And supposing you as pujaris have a nice plan, how to have a nice festival. And you dress the deities and decorate the deities and this and that and the other thing. You probably have a plan because you're devotees. You want to have however, even in such devotional service or any devotional service, there's the risk in doing something nicely of expecting something. Expecting something, whatever that something is, some recognition. And, recognition should be given. It's not that recognition shouldn't be given when something is done nicely. But the art of pure devotional service is it doesn't stick. You pass it on. I just had a nice exchange yesterday with one of Prabhupada's disciples. I won't go into it. I was just asking for some information, and immediately, you know, and this devotee consistently is very kind and very swift and very merciful. And I shared that with them. You're amazing. And they're immediately it didn't stick. Now, I don't know what's going on in their heart. So it's easy to say something and it's still, there's something sticking in the heart. But this devotee said, if you find any good quality in me, it's because Prabhupada put it there. Having said that, my point is it has to do with Prahlad teaching pure devotional service and genuine humility. So the transparency of pure devotional services, the credit goes, in Prahlad's case, the credit goes to Narada. Credit goes to Narada. Because he's looking at himself as a most unfortunate person in contaminating association. And because of that contaminating association, taking on bad qualities like that but he doesn't have those bad qualities. But he's speaking of himself as if he does. And at the same time, he doesn't. He doesn't take on those qualities. Just sharing the same point expressed in a different way this morning. Srila Prabhupada speaking in Bombay, November 25th, 1974. He spent a long time in Bombay. And he spoke very strongly on different topics. But he was making the point, because this is something that it's in the teachings of Kapila Dev, that by association, by sadhu sangha, it's the dwaram. It's very similar to the teachings of Rishabdev. That this sadhu sangha is the dwaram for going beyond the modes of nature. Of course, there's the quality and character of the sadhu that's very important, but it's meant for relieving one from the material circumstances of life. And he's making a nice point, which is similar to this point, so that's why I'm repeating it. Even one may feel this Vaishnava humility, not just say it, but feel it. And conduct one's devotional service consistently from that position of Vaishnava humility. The position of Vaishnava humility is there's always some difficulty. I'm sure you've noticed. Difficulties, and you can list them. You know, there are three categories: adhyatmikadi, daibikadi, bautika, kleshas. And there's always something, or combination of something. And that something is there because we have a body. Then Prabhupada, having said that, Prabhupada explained, but for the devotee, there's no difficulty. There's no difficulty because those who are attached to Krishna, they're not experiencing difficulty. He was speaking about his disciples who they're, you know, the European American. He's speaking to the Indian community in Bombay to help them become more Vaishnava-like, because although it's their culture, they become accustomed to Western ways. And these young boys and girls, there's difficulty. They're from birth, they're accustomed to bad things. He listed some of the bad things, but now they have no interest. So it's tolerance to tikshava karunika. So the no suffering, he was explaining, so I'm sharing, the Titiksha doesn't just mean you grit your teeth and you bear it. You're aware of circumstances. It's particularly even, a Vaishnava is introspective, and they're aware of, at least to a degree, they're aware of the anarthas within. One of them being, as we mentioned, pride. The tendency to have an expectation the person should recognize my position, my service, my seniority, my whatever it is, whatever the sadhu bhushana, the ornament of a sadhu, the expectation that people should acknowledge that and appreciate that. And when it's appreciated, oh, no, no. But their inside is saying, yes, yes, yes. So that's not pure devotional service. And there is a tendency. And when there is such a tendency, it's very debilitating. It pride destroys everything good, or corrupts and contaminates everything good, and that way destroys the goodness. So Prahlad is teaching the way of pure devotional service, and his humility is consistent, and his tolerance is consistent. And with those two, he's naturally an object of affection and protection. Even before Lord Nrsingadev appeared, Prahlad was the object of the Lord's affection and protection. So whether the personality of Godhead may appear before us, just like coming up as Gaur Purnima, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chose to display his divinity to different persons. And I'm going to be discussing some of that during the evening classes. But in so many variegated ways, he gave his mercy to unexpecting personalities. And what inspired him to reveal himself to those unexpected personalities? He doesn't need a purpose or a cause. He can display his mercy however he wants to display his mercy. But when he displays his mercy, then that's very nice. One of the childhood, there's many. I'll just mention one for remembering Lord Chaitanya purposes. When he was very small, like a baby, a toddler, his mother and father decorated him very opulently, golden ornaments, necklaces, and things. So seeing his gold decorating his body, there were two thieves. And they thought they would entice him by offering something nice to eat, because children like something nice to eat. And by seeing him in this helpless position, they picked him up and were carrying away. The idea was not just to steal his ornaments, but to kill him. That was their idea. And of course, he's the personality of Godhead. He could smash them or do whatever he wanted to do, or whatever he wanted to do. But he was enjoying going for a ride. And by his Yogamaya potency, they were going around in circles 3 times. And when they realized that they were going around in circles, then they panicked and they put him down. And meanwhile, so he gave his mercy to these 2 thieves that had bad ideas, bad intentions, thieves and plunderers and even murderers. But he gave his mercy to them. Now, it doesn't say what happened after he gave his mercy to them, but he gave his mercy to them. It's so many, many, many ways that what's the prompt for the personality of Godhead to give us mercy to someone? There's one Bhagavad Gita verse that tells us one of the reasons, not necessarily the only reason, that samoham sarva bhuteshu na me dveshosti na priyaha. He's equal to everyone, but then for his devotee, he shows special favor. So when one becomes qualified, like Prahlad, or like a follower of Prahlad, or a follower of a sadhaka, that doesn't just do sadhana or service in a mechanical way, but has an aspiration to being, again, connected, which is what Prabhupada is saying in the purport, the mission of life is to go back home, back to Godhead. And feeling oneself humble, thus I need mercy more than the person who's more qualified than me. So that feeling of humility plus devotion invites mercy. It just goes along with the territory of becoming an advanced devotee is feeling oneself not advanced, and it's not cosmetic. It's actually how one feels. While at the same time engaging in service that's exalted. Again, because of the assembly here, most of you here are pujaris, and it's a very coveted position. You serve and touch and dress, etc. The personality of Godhead. That's a very exalted position, because it's not just a deity, but it's the Supreme Lord who is inviting you to serve him in that way. A very coveted position. You're very fortunate. And the mercy of Krishna will come for those who are wanting not just to do in a mechanical way, but in a way of pleasing the Supreme Lord. Not to say that you are or you're not, it's just a condition to serve the Supreme Lord for his pleasure. And that's the qualification for getting mercy. It's mercy just to be in that particular service. And one can say any other thing is also makes one eligible. Like our book distributors, is a fact. Prabhupada said, make their life fortunate if they even just touch the book. They're getting great spiritual benefit. Or Harinam Sankirtan, or festivals, or Prasadam distribution, etc. Their spiritual life has begun. And in addition to being tolerant of circumstances that are by nature problematic, even when praise comes, that can be problematic because tendency is to have it stick. But then Karunika, Titikshava Karunika, these are symptoms or bhushanams or ornaments of a pure devotee. So Prahlad is exhibiting them, and he's teaching them. He's teaching them to different ways to different audiences. To his classmates, that's one. To his father, that's another. To his teachers, that's another. To Lord Nrsimhadev, it's another. You know, the consistency is the consistency of pure devotion, communicating pure devotion, always. Different expressions at different times. Even with one audience, he can, like in this case, Lord Nrsimhadev, he's speaking as if contaminated, and then he's speaking later as if not contaminated. And then speaking as if becoming freed. So the voice can be circumstantially adjusted, but the position of pure devotion is consistently, focus is not going upon oneself, focus is going upon the personality of Godhead and an eagerness to receive mercy. These two things, effort and mercy, and never slackening or no complacency. No complacency. And how are you going to, if one of the ways to ensure that you don't become complacent is humility, because you have an idea of the goal and you have the sense, I'm not there yet. And therefore, humility is a protection against pride, which is destructive. And it's inviting for mercy. So it's ongoing submission. That's the way of pure devotional service. Or as Prabhupada is concluding in the purport, remaining always eager to go back home, back to Godhead. That's his message. He's already there because he's a Vaikunthavasi, but he's teaching the way of pure devotional service, even when speaking to Lord Nrsingadev, because we're the recipients of that message and that mercy. And therefore, the story of Prahlad is so popular. The teachings of Prahlad are so popular. I'll end with this. I remember as a very new devotee, 1970, summer 1970, that's a few years ago. I enjoyed very much hearing about Prahlad. He was like, wow. So I wanted to hear more because in lectures, Prabhupada would speak about Prahlad, but at that time, seventh canto wasn't available. So lo and behold, Srila Prabhupada gave us another besides Back to Godhead magazine, which was the staple that we were distributing in the public Sankirtan, another small book, little booklet, little small, something like 40, 50 pages, something like that. Teachings of Prahlad. I was like so excited. I read it again and again, and we distributed it along with Back to Godhead magazine, and I was really happy reading it and understanding we're giving Prabhupada's mercy, we're giving people the opportunity to hear the ways of pure devotional service as Prahlad was expressing it. And that's what a pure devotee, that's what a great acharya does, is he doesn't make something new. He just presents something that's already there in a package that is palatable for the audience, or can be appreciated by the audience, or can be received by the audience, customized for the audience, packaging different, same message. So chapter 9, and you're going to, going forward with more verses and Prahlad's teachings. It's a very, to let it go in, to hear it again and again, and let it go in and apply it. You'll live it, live that message by hearing carefully again and again. So let's see if there's some discussion. Yes? Prahlad Maharaj, what? You want to know if his Asura father is a Vaikunthavasi? Is that what you're asking? Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, he is also Vaikuntha. And other.
Well, wait a minute. This is the fall of the jiva question. Now, in his case, it's the exception.
Narada.
No, Hiranyakashipu, Jai and Vijay, in this particular yuga cycle. But that's the exception. So in this particular case, yes, because it's Jai and Hiranyaksha Vijay. But that's the exception. Someone who's an asura and their children are elevated persons doesn't mean they're Vaikuntavasis also. That's the point you're making? Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Who is also.
Well, that's your idea. I'm reluctant to say yes to that because where's that in scripture? It's an interesting idea, but I've never seen that. So I'm reluctant to say, yeah, that's a nice creative idea. It's true. It's part of Lord Narayan's pastime to have an opportunity for combat. And so Jai descends to have that desire of Lord Narayan fulfilled. But it's not, not a cause and effect thing. It's a pastime thing. Maybe we're saying the same thing, but I'm reluctant to say yes. That's a further confirmation that Prahlad is situated in pure devotional service because his father was also Jaya sent to this world, and therefore Vaikunthavasi. Putting the two things, the cause and effect, together, I'm not so sure about that. Yes. Yeah. Say something about Madhavendra Puri. Sure. I'm going to say something about Madhavendra Puri this evening in relation to the topic for this evening is going to be Nimai Pandit's 2 initiations. And his first initiation or mantra diksha was from Ishwar Puri, who was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri, we'll be discussing this evening, is described as the seed from which a plant grew, from which the gardener, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, distributed the fruits and flowers. But the seed that was given by Madhavendra Puri was this phrase that he repeated again and again of the feelings of separation and praying to Krishna to what am I to do now in this feeling of separation? You're not with me anymore. And saying it again and again and feeling the ecstasy of specifically the ecstasy of the gopis in the mood of separation from Krishna. So prior to Madhavendra Puri, that was not that kind of bhakti was not manifest. It's not to say that he created something or deviated or something like that. It's just he, by his relationship with Krishna, felt those feelings of love. And by saying again and saying again, absorption in that mood, his ecstasies of love for Krishna skyrocketed. And those same moods of love for Krishna were passed on to Ishwara Puri. And those same feelings of love were passed on from Ishwara Puri, but of course natural to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu anyways, because of his Leela, but of the love of Radha for Krishna. But that was by the pastime, they were passed on through Ishwara Puri, who received from Madhavendra Puri. So for our purposes, for Gaudiya Vaishnava purposes, Madhavendra Puri is a most important individual in our disciplic line. And it's given in terms of disciplic succession. Madhavendra Puri originated, Ishwara Puri grew, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested the fullness of this love of the residents of Vrindavan, or even more specifically, the love of the gopis in separation from Krishna. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expanded that like anything. Practically as soon as his Diksha with Ishwara Puri took place, he became mad and totally detached from anything worldly. Totally detached. That's, of course, a pastime, but we look to Madhavendra Puri as being the giver of the seed of that. Yeah.
But they are Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also initiated by the Madhavendra Puri and Ishwara Puri come through the Maya. They are making point like that.
I'm familiar with that point.
Yeah, just say.
I'm familiar with it. So you want to know what is a good response to that criticism? Okay. Well, they're not blaming Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They're saying, actually, look at what he did. They're speaking, he and followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in particular, speaking bad things about us, but he took initiation, sannyas diksha. And there's three answers. I just was covering this in Atlanta before coming here. Same question. Actually, the question was, why did he not seek sannyas diksha from a Vaishnav guru or from his own guru? Because his own guru, Ishwara Puri, was still present at that time. So why didn't he go to Ishwara Puri? Because kind of like in ISKCON, that's what we would do. And there's three-part answer. The first is, what we do today is not what was prevalent and common at that time. Prevalent and common at that time was those who, even Vaishnavas, not only Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Vaishnavas like Madhavendra Puri. Puri is a name, a sannyas, there's 10 different names that come from Shankaracharya sannyas gurus. So at that time, that was the system. And so he did what at that time was a system, because Vaishnava sannyas diksha didn't have the same regard in the world at that time as Shankara sannyas. Second, related to that, because of that reason, Mahaprabhu wanted one of the reasons for taking sannyas, one of the reasons was that students and others who were criticizing his outpouring of Krishna bhakti would stop. In part, they would stop because there's respect that goes to a sannyasi, and he wanted that purpose to be fulfilled. So he took sannyas from a place where respect would be maximized, because that was the system, that was the prevalent system at the time. And a third reason is one of these inexplicable reasons, or, how do we understand, where does the Lord give his mercy? Like he gave his mercy to the two thieves that wanted to steal from him, or steal the golden ornaments on his body. He gave mercy to Keshava Bharati in such a way that Keshava Bharati became a Vaishnav. Although he was a prominent sannyasi in the Shankara line, he had his ashram. Although many sannyasis travel, he wasn't a Paribrajacharya sannyasi at that time. His base was in Katwa. So it was proximate, so he went to Katwa. And he became a devotee. And a fourth reason is important. It's right in Chaitanya Bhagavat. We'll be discussing this evening, so you're preempting this evening's class. It's okay. When it came time for the giving of the mantra, there's a sannyas mantra. He said, according to Chaitanya Bhagavat, he said to Keshava Bharati, in a dream last night, a mendicant came to me in a dream, and he told me this particular mantra. Is it a valid sannyas mantra? And he whispered in his ear. And Keshava Bharati said, nothing remains unknown to you. Yes, this is the proper mantra. And then he repeated it back, meaning Chaitanya Mahaprabhu initiated Keshava Bharati. And immediately after, when it came to the giving of the name, he gave the name Krishna Chaitanya, which was unusual, as you know, because that's a brahmachari name. But that together, Chaitanya Bhagavat describes, they began saying Krishna's name and dancing in ecstasy along with everybody else that were there. So he became swept away in the mood of Krishna Bhakti. So that's a fourth reason. Giving his mercy to Keshava Bharati, that instead of being a Mayavadi sannyasi, he would become a Vaishnava, but in a playful way. The main reason being he had a purpose. He came to give bhakti and the respect that would naturally go, culturally speaking, to a sannyasi. It should be maximized, and that was the culture at the time.
Like Buddha came and just preaching the ahimsa paramo dharma. Same thing, right?
Yes. Anything else, or we're done? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.